Right, British wrestling has always been the greatest wrestling in the world. Forget the Americans. And they should bring back the rounds, 2 falls, 2 submissions, or 1 KO to decide the winner.
This is London.
These are dangerous days.
Professional wrestling in Britain has a history stretching back to the late 19th century, but had fallen from favour by the Second World War thanks to an overemphasis of the American all-in style. With wrestlers attacking opponents with sawdust, stools, and even ether-soaked rags, the apparent absence of rules had left the sport in disrepute, and the London City Council banned wrestling shows in the late 1930s. Meanwhile, at the end of the war, officials refused to reissue promoters with their entertainment licenses, which had been suspended during hostilities. To salvage the sport's reputation, a committee met in Parliament to establish clear-cut rules to govern wrestling matches. The committee was led by Admiral Lord Edward Mountevans, a former colleague of Scott of the Antarctic, and their findings soon became known as the Mount Evans Rules. The committee also included Member of Parliament Maurice Webb, radio personality Commander A.B. Campbell, and 4-time former British amateur wrestling champion Norman Morrill. The main purpose of the Mount Evans rules was to define the permitted holds used by the competitors. The standard holds are any combination of grips with one or both hands and/or one or both legs taken for the purpose of throwing an opponent, for the purpose of gaining a pin or submission fall. The use of the forearm for offensive and defensive purposes, the use of the sole or side of the feet, the shoulder charge and the leg dive shall be permitted.
The standing half Nelson is just that. Right? The 3/4 Nelson is when you take them to there and you're taking them down, which I'll show you the ground movement. The full Nelson is here. Right, now, but when he's on all fours, this is the 1/4 Nelson. He's to there. I'm pushing his head down and taking him over. I want to do the half. Don't let me turn you. The idea is for me to take his arm and turn him over. Right? Right, that's the 3/4 Nelson. You don't do a full Nelson on the ground. Your head charges over. If you do a front head transfer, you take the head, tuck it under your arm, turn in. If you want to be a bit more vicious, you take his further arm and put it in. Go to the side, and then switch round to the other side. Right, that's your 3 head charges. It's just waist hold. Right, if you want to take the waist hold down to the ground, which I won't, you lift it first up, and take it down. I said I wouldn't, but and if you want to do it, you can take them up. I won't do this one. You can take them up and you can actually kick their leg to get a higher bump as you take them down. You take the right hand to your left hand. Hand there, like that. That's just an ordinary standing one. You want to do it with the bar. When you get to there, drop your arm in, there you've got the bar. Right? So that's the first movement. And the second one is take it to there, drop the arm in, that's the bar. If you want to be a little bit more vicious with that, you take it to the side of the back. No, side chop tree. If you want to be a bit more vicious with that, it's to there, to there. Now, if you want to go to your cross, and on your to your cross, yeah, just a little bit. I could rip his arm out if I wanted to. You could. But that's called, but we won't go on, that's called a chicken wing. That's if you wanted to be a bit more vicious with the arm, like what Ross is talking about. That's just your standing wrist lever. It's to there. I'll come to the opponent, take him up to there, and over there. Done with a little bit of speed. If you throw me to the ropes, I'm going to roll up and come towards me, right? Yeah. Alright? That's the crotch hold. The rest of this bridge, I think you all know the rest of the bridge, don't you? Start off with a front bridge. And that's that. That's the front bridge. Can you just put it all over to the back? Yeah. Can you flip over? And that's the back bridge. Right? Ross takes me down. I come up to the bridge. You go up to the bridge. That's your scissors. There's various ways of getting into the scissors, but I just thought that might be the easiest way. The flying mare, the actual real flying mare is not used much. That's when the opponent is there, and I dive across the ring and catch him. I don't know if you can do it, can you? Yeah. You go from there, and he... That's the flying mare, which is not used much nowadays. The mare that is used, it's called, you're calling it a snap mare. It's just called an head mare. And that's that. That's the head mare. You're doing what you call a hip toss, and it's that. But the cross buttock is actually when you turn right into your opponent there, and then you take him over. That's a cross buttock. If you're doing a locked arm cross buttock, which I don't particularly like, is when I take his arm there. Now I'm restricting his actual fall, but I'll go anyway. That's a locked arm cross buttock.
A fall is deemed to have been obtained when a wrestler's shoulders have been pinned to the mat for a count of 3 to the satisfaction of the referee. A fall may also be given by an opponent submitting from a hold out of which he is unable to escape. A fall shall terminate any round in which it occurs. A match is decided in favour of a wrestler who obtains 2 out of 3 falls, or the only fall of the match, or whose opponent fails to beat the referee's count of 10 when thrown to the canvas, or whose opponent is ruled by the referee to be in an unfit condition to continue the match, or whose opponent is disqualified by the referee. The referee shall have sole and entire charge of the contest and of the wrestlers while they are in the ring, and his decisions shall at all times be final. World of Sport slot. Today, LDN Wrestling is proud to recognise British wrestling's heritage by promoting the first regularly televised matches in nearly 2 decades to combine the principles of the Mount Evans rules and the spirit and tradition of the rounds-based contest popularised on World of Sport.
My name is Tony Scarlo. I started amateur wrestling at the age of 11. There was a club called the Syndicate Wrestling Club. I turned professional age 18 in 1955. I answered a television, an advert from a newspaper to see professional wrestlers wanted, and the audience was at the audition at popular bars in London. From then on I progressed as a wrestler, formed a tag partnership with Peter Kelly, calling ourselves the Cockney Kids, and we went on from there. Dal Martins, who was the premier wrestling promotion at that time, signed us up around about 1960. We've been on television numerous times, and in 1974 at Pickett's Lock, I wrestled the Dynamite Kid. The Dynamite Kid went on to be British champion, also went on to be one of the American Bulldogs, the British Bulldogs. fantastic wrestler, along with his cousin, Davey Boy Smith. Unfortunately, Davey Boy Smith is no longer with us, and the Dynamite Kid, whose real name is Tommy Billington, unfortunately is in a wheelchair. But nevertheless, one of the greatest wrestlers from this country.
This is London. This is London.
Many, many years ago, when I first started in the wrestling business, wrestling was outlawed, well not actually outlawed, but decried by the public, mainly Parliament. We had a woman called Dr. Edith Summerskill who was very, very much against wrestling. So at that time they put tax on wrestling. Though wrestlers paid income tax, there was actual tax on wrestling halls. So if you took X amount of pounds at a hall, the promoter had to pay tax on that before he could pay your wages. And your wages was also taxed by the government, which meant that wrestlers and boxers was on very little money. Dr. Edith Summerskill put petition after petition to ban boxing and wrestling because they thought it was too dangerous. Boxers and wrestlers are going to end up very, very seriously injured. Then government got together and you had Lord Marquis formed the rules for the boxing. That's why it's called under the Marquis of Granbury rules. And wrestling was formed by the Admiral Lord Mount Heavens. This was the rules changed British wrestling because at the same time they lifted the tax off of wrestling, which meant that boxers and wrestlers' wages was increased to a more substantial wage. The general this he stopped it. Well, unfortunately, at that time, wrestling was on television and it was controlled by two people from ITV. One was called Mike Archer and the other one was called John Bromley. The majority of the wrestlers was either wrestling abroad, as I say, was working, had full-time jobs, and they wasn't interested at their age to start giving up work and going back into the business that they wasn't too sure of at the time. I'm glad to say now that wrestling seems to be on the incline. Well, wrestling in America. First of all, let me say that years ago, the Americans came over here to learn how to wrestle. They learned all their technical wrestling over here. Someone see a little niche in the market where if they started using aerial moves, i.e. the moonsault, the back flips and all the other aerial moves you could think of, hurricanranes, they found that it would attract a wider audience. But I've never ever seen so many wrestlers at a young age injured for doing all these silly flying moves. Now, wrestling is coming back to its own. In America, they're doing more and more technical wrestling. And we're also doing it over here, which it would help the sport to bring the sport back into the way it was. Oh, definitely. I mean, you've had Premier Promotions have been using it for years. You've got Phoenix Promotions have always used the round. There's quite a lot of promoters use the round rules. Yes, it will change and it will come back to rounds, but the simple reason is it's nice to have a definition of 2 falls, 2 submissions or 1 knockout to decide the winner. In quite a lot of sports you've got the best of 3, and you should have the best of 3 back into wrestling. Wrestling, in the years I've been in wrestling, I've seen a decline in wrestling, I've seen it go up, I've seen it come down, I've seen all different angles of it changing and coming back again. But at the end of the day, it always resorts back to the original wrestling, how wrestling used to be in the world of sport days. Well, the only thing I can say now is that there's more and more schools are opening up, and I'm glad to say that they are learning the technical side of wrestling, and it's creating a lot of interest, and hopefully that wrestling will flourish again as it used to be. My match with him was awesome. I'd never ever met the guy, never ever even heard of the guy until I got to Pickett's Lock and I was told, you're wrestling the Dynamite Kid, and my response was, who? And when we got in the ring, he was 20 years younger than me, but boy, could he wrestle. Whoever taught him at that particular time, the man was awesome. And if he was still wrestling today, he would still be awesome.
Are you sure you're ready?
Right, I've been asked here today to take you to do some technical wrestling, or chain wrestling, whichever you like. Not American crap, proper English wrestling. Right, now from what I've seen of you so far, I'd say that 10% of you are reasonably fit. The rest of you are not. Now with technical wrestling, chain wrestling, you need, apart from fitness, you need flexibility. Because without flexibility, you can do yourself a lot of injury in wrestling, believe you me.
This is London. This is London. This is London. This is London.
It was in the latter half of 2006 that LDN decided to reintroduce Mount Evans rules matches to its viewers. Despite initial skepticism, these matches were received warmly by LDN audiences. As a result of this, and due to popular demand, Mount Evans rules were featured more predominantly at LDN live events and on LDN Capital TV. Then, before the close of 2006, LDN made Mount Evans rules matches a permanent feature of LDN in the form of the Spirit League, thus cementing the Mount Evans tradition into LDN lore. The Spirit Leagues brings together the past and present of British wrestling, as through the Mount Evans rules setup, World of Sport era competitors would clash with their younger and modern day counterparts in a series of battles that reflect the history, passion and spirit which characterised British wrestling since the 19th century.
The reason LDN has brought in the Spirit League is because British wrestling was massively popular in the 70s and 80s, as we all know. Draws millions of people. Got taken off, American style came in, And the problem that we found was every single promotion out in this country today enough does the American style, and there's very few promotions out there who are doing British style wrestling. And when I put John Ritchie into LDN, when I brought him in, the one thing that I wanted to do was try out the rounds division, see how it worked. We had a rounds match a couple of months ago in Romford in front of a huge crowd of near 400 paying customers. And one thing that we found with that was that the fans at first were like, well, we didn't understand this, especially the kids. But by the end of the match, the fans really liked it. And I think that night we found LDN's new unique selling point, and that was a British round system. Now we rebranded it the Spirit League, and we're going to bring it back and hopefully put British wrestling back on the top, giving the fans a product that isn't the American style, but the British style, something that's unique, British, and something for all the family.
Already competition is running high, as competitors such as Johnny Kidd, Mike Mendoza, Yorgos, John Ritchie, Dave Jackson, Phil Powers and more have set a high standard for others to follow here in LDN. Already lots of attention has come as a result of LDN's attempts to bring the Mount Evans rules back to the forefront of wrestling via the Spirit League, as aspiring young wrestlers whose imaginations have been captured by the performances of past heroes have come to the LDN Training School. The LDN Training School, who are currently seeing record attendances, strive to reintegrate the British approach into a generation who have been heavily influenced by the US style. As we move into 2007, LDN will continue to feature the Spirit League predominantly, and to show this commitment, LDN have announced that the Spirit League competitors will get the opportunity to compete for the Golden Grapplers Trophy, an annual round-robin tournament to see who is the best in the Spirit League. LDN would like to thank Tony Scarlo for his contribution to this Mount Evans presentation, and also John Lister for his research into the history of the Mount Evans rules. John's books Slamphology and Turning the Tables are available online.
Are you sure you're ready?
Coming next week, LDN Capital TV Season 2. In a battle that has been months in the making, Yorgos will finally get his hands on Jason, Sweet Sensation.
This is London.
We will see women's action when Jetta takes on the newcomer, Erin Angel. And Spirit League action when Mikey Mendoza, the #1 contender to the British Championship, takes on the veteran, Filthy Phil Powers.
These are dangerous days.
We take you now to London.